Hey, friends, welcome to the Connected Mom podcast. You know, as I have talked with moms really from all over the country, I realize that depression and anxiety and different mental health issues often come up in the journey of motherhood. And yet, so often, we're afraid to talk about that, particularly in the church. And yet, it seems like the church should be a safe place to go if you're wrestling with these issues. And so, if you're a mom and you've struggled with postpartum depression or seasonal disorder or anxiety or just general fear, I really want you to lean in and listen today because I believe we have a message of hope for you. As you know, here at the Connected Mom podcast, we don't do guilt. So we're not going to feel guilty about any of this. We are going to seek solutions and we're going to move closer to God. Our goal is to help you connect with God more deeply, to connect with your fellow moms more empathetically, and connect with your child more intentionally. And so I have a guest with me today who has written a profound book. Her name is Jennifer Renee Watson, and she has written the book, What If You're Doing Better Than You Think? And the title intrigued me. So when I got this book and I got an invitation from her publicist, I said yes, because so many moms are doing better than they think. And yet they go to bed at night and they think, I blew it today or whatever. And so we're going to dive into that conversation today. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. So first of all, tell us about your family.
Yeah. So I have two adult daughters. I call them adult babies because they're still in that season where they need to know how to do everything, call and make appointments. So I have two daughters, 22 and 20, Elise and Whitley, and they are just my absolute joy. And once I was able to have children after infertility and losing two babies, that became my whole passion, is just being fully present with my daughters. And they're such a gift. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sorry that you had a journey with infertility and miscarriage. That is the story of so many. And it's a heartbreaking journey, and it really can leave you with a lot of PTSD. So in the book, you talk a little bit about PTSD. And first of all, tell us how you would describe PTSD.
Well, it's like your body is in high alert, so you're startled easily by um, noises. You just kind of feel on edge, and so everything is signaling your body a danger zone, even for people who are probably safe for you. So anything is just your everything is like high alert, and then it feels like all of the nerves are completely exposed. Is how I think about PTSD, is just knowing that your default setting is just a little more sensitive than it normally is.
Yeah, that's a good description. And we know from other authors that our bodies remember even if our minds forget. And so there's that. One of the phrases that you use in the book quite often, and I love this phrase, I want you to dive into it a little bit, is teaching women to fiercely advocate for themselves. What does that mean and what does that look like?
What it looks like is it's so hard for women to ask for help for themselves. We can jump in and we can help everybody else, but we tend to kind of leave ourselves on the back burner. So, advocating for yourself means maybe asking for help, seeking counseling, going to the doctor when you need to, making those self care days where you're just taking care of your heart. We have to advocate for ourselves because if we don't, no one else will.
Yeah, and yet, I think one thing you talk about this in the book, and it's true for many women. Many of us grew up with kind of this good girl syndrome, where we're not going to make a racket and we're not going to cause a fuss. And so, how did that start for you personally? Where did that good girl syndrome come from, and what did you do about it?
Goodness, I feel like I learned that really early on. So, my dad was an alcoholic and abusive, and because of that, that dynamic just changed and shifted when he was in the room. And so, you typically did better if you didn't make quiet. If you were quiet, you didn't make noises, and you were easy to deal with. And so, I learned that very on. It was like love had conditions, and so I felt like it was my job to be easy, easy of, easygoing. And I really am, for the most part, very easygoing. But at some point, you have to go, all right, like, what are my needs? And like, is it okay to ask for them? So I went through this whole journey of figuring out what I needed and why, and realizing that it was absolutely okay for me to speak up for myself and advocate for myself and just kind of push back when I needed to, if someone was like stepping in or if there was any sort of mistreatment. That it took me a long time to get to that place.
What was the turning point for you?
I think by realizing that, especially once I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was like, oh my goodness, this is not just something, I'm not being dramatic or too sensitive. This is absolutely happening to my body, to my mind, and you can't make this up. They diagnose you for fun. So I knew that it was time to really pay attention to the warning signs. Really kind of remove myself from some unhealthy situations that were in my relationships, different things like that, to where I was like, my body is reacting because I don't feel safe. And how can I create a place of safety? And also, how can I build a life I don't have to run from?
Yeah, I think that's a huge question. How do I build a life that I don't want to run from? Now, you were in a church for a while, like I
Yes,
think on staff, correct?
yes, yes.
And how did it go for you, if you don't mind sharing, being on staff, dealing with some mental health issues, and what was that like for you?
Well, I will say this, if we are not supported emotionally, we are going to have mental health issues. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We have to have emotional support in our relationships. We absolutely have to have safety in our relationships. And I feel like the place that women should feel the safest are in her home and the house she worships, the house that she tends to, and the house that she worships. So church should always be a place. And when you're in ministry, sometimes you're a walking target, and it wasn't always safe for me. So there was a time where I was serving alongside my husband. We were pastors, and there was a lot of like attacks happening. And so I had to step away from my role, um, just like self preservation and protection, and pull back to take care of myself. And there was a little bit of guilt there, but once I knew that God was saying, I absolutely did not call you to this, did not call you to take up this cross. Then I was able to kind of get the help that I needed, get the time that I needed to not be on duty, because you're kind of underneath the magnifying lens in church or any kind of public role or service. You are up front and everybody feels like they need access to you, and that's very hard.
Yeah. So, okay. So maybe women are listening and they're like, okay, how can I tell if a relationship is toxic? What would you tell them?
If you're constantly walking on eggshells, if you feel like you have to become smaller, if you feel like you're going to get in trouble all the time. So there's some telltale signs, but when it comes to like mistreatment and different things like that, those are absolutely deal breakers and things that we don't have to be okay with accepting. And so I had to really go, okay, these are some harmful things happening. And when my body feels like this, it's because I feel unsafe. So when women feel like they're walking on eggshells, if they feel like they can't speak up for themselves, or if they feel like they are a different version of themselves around this person, it might be unhealthy.
Yeah, those are some good just signs to look for in your relationships. I feel like that's really valuable because that idea that you're walking on eggshells, that is exhausting after a while. And it robs you of who God created you to be. And so I feel like that's really important. One of the things is you talk about women gaslighting themselves. And I really want to talk about this because I do think that happens. First of all, I want you to explain what gaslighting is. And then I want you to tell us, how do we gaslight ourselves as moms?
So, gaslighting is when something absolutely 100% happens, and then someone says, well, no, I didn't say it like that, or that never happened, or it wasn't that bad, or you're just being too sensitive. So, gaslighting is taking a memory or a moment and saying, oh, no, that's not exactly how you had it at all. Let me tell you how to reframe what you felt or thought based on my controlling this. So I feel like we gaslight ourselves when we say, okay, it wasn't that bad. Um, Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe it's not
Women do this all the
all the time.
time.
Or we are ridiculous at it. And it comes from a really good place. I feel like women are natural givers and nurturers. That comes from a really good place. But when it gets dangerous is when we start to disbelieve our own stories and what happened to us. And that is so easy for us to do, to say, okay, well, maybe it was all in my head. And usually when we keep doing that over and over and over, then there's a pattern in our life that we kind of have to uproot and say, no, that absolutely happened and it wasn't okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it okay to say it wasn't okay from your perspective?
Yes, I think that we have to, because I think that there's a lot of times where we might be in a harmful situation and we try to make it easier on the person causing harm. And that is absolutely not our role in that. It is okay for us to say, this is not okay. And I'm going to like pull back in this really, and maybe it's a friendship that, where you're being talked about or whatever, where it's just, you feel like you have to jump through all the hoops. So it's just, saying it out loud, saying it to someone, and then meeting each other where you're at.
Yeah, and I think that that's really good because I think there have been a lot of misconceptions about what it means to follow Jesus and that we're going to be, happy clappy all the time and we're going to keep everybody else happy along the journey. But Jesus didn't do that. He was pretty confrontational. And that was, if Jesus can do that and we're called to follow Jesus, then we need to be able to do that. But I think a lot of people have misinterpreted what it means to lay down our life to follow Jesus. And it doesn't mean that Jesus wants you to be a doormat, does it?
Oh, I know, absolutely. And I love the pictures of Jesus where he knew how to take a really good exit strategy, where he went to the other side of the lake, where he got alone with the Lord. He knew when to exit. And that is something that we have to do as women, is learn when to take that off ramp and take care of ourselves, when to pull away, tend to our hearts so that we can come back and be what, others might need us to be. But we have to take care of ourselves, and we're bad at doing that.
Yeah, we are. And, Jesus said that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves, but you can't love your neighbor as yourself if you don't love yourself. So, and part of loving yourself is taking care of yourself because you take care of so many other people. One of the things that you went through was you talk pretty openly about having seasonal depression. So, talk to us about that and what you did to help yourself with that.
Okay, so I really feel like that when women wrestle with anxiety or depression, so depression tells us we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're not strong enough. Anxiety tells us we're not doing enough. And so when the seasons got colder, that's when I started to really struggle with depression, just feeling low. It was dark outside, different things like that. But that is the season where you're inside the most and you need the most emotional support and connection with humans. Um, we love our little people, we love our children and raising them, but they don't always they can't meet that need, for us. We really do need people to walk with, alongside us, to do life with. And so I noticed that when I didn't have that emotional support built in, I struggled more. So, something that I would do was I would exercise more. I would get out a little happy light, so I would get some sort of like light. It's just this light that helps you, kind of mimics the sunlight, and to where you're getting the things that you need, taking care of yourself, eating good, all of the things that, we can kind of push to the side when we're in a hurry or just trying to just surviving life.
And I think taking an antidepressant if you need it, or an anti-anxiety medicine, Christians don't seem to have a problem usually going to the doctor with a broken arm or, a broken ankle. But when it involves their mind and something not working correctly, sometimes the answer you're going to get from well-meaning Christian people is, you just need to pray more. You just need to do this more, but there's a point where medicine can help, correct?
Absolutely. Well, and that I kind of put myself in the dedicated medicated
Yeah,
category.
I love that. Dedicated, medicated. Yeah.
Because you know what, we do need that extra help and it's available to us. It's not a crutch. I started on medication right around the seasonal, when I really noticed that this was not going to go away. It was something that I needed help fighting it. So I went on depression. There was so much shame attached to that because if I would have prayed hard enough, if I would have just trusted God more, but none of that was the case. What I had was a real medical condition that needed treatment. And when I started taking care of myself and adding, a small dose of medication into the mix, it radically changed my life. And I felt like I could, I called it I had normal people anxiety, where it was just, you need to feel something, but you don't need to be on high alert. Medication helped me do that. And so when people are thinking of it as a crutch, think of it as a place to start. And layer that with counseling, figuring out your root of depression. Mine was I'm not enough. And then anxiety for me, I'm not doing enough. And I had to realize that just as I am enough even when I'm not enough because Christ is more than enough in me. And that we're not what we produce. We are not what we check off our list. We're so much more than that. And so that pressure to perform and keep up will tank our mental health if we let it.
Yeah, and I think a huge gift to the church in this season is how open people like Sheila Walsh are about the fact that they have been diagnosed with clinical depression and they take medicine. And you have to realize that your brain is part of your body, and if things aren't firing correctly, it's okay to take something to help you, because you want to be the best version that you can be of yourself for your kids. And so a lot of times when people say, well, I'm not going to take medicine, but then they're blowing up at their kids or staying in bed in a dark room all day, that's not terribly helpful for your kids either. So, I mean, it would be better to just take the medicine and be who God has designed you to be. Our bodies are frail. Sometimes they don't work well. I'm a cancer survivor. And if I had said, well, I'm just going to, pray harder and not do anything about this, I wouldn't be around today. I had to take medicine. I had to do things for it. I had to have surgeries in order to heal me of that. And so I just want to be really clear on that, because I think sometimes women and moms who are trying so hard but are depressed and are not taking the medicine, or are taking the medicine, then they shame spiral. So talk to us about shame spiraling.
So I feel like that is something that we struggle with as women, as moms, because shame comes in in the term of should. I should be able to handle this. I should be okay by now, but I'm not. I should be doing so much more. I should be hanging out with all of the moms and bringing, snacks to every function. We should be. And so we attach shame to our struggles when we aren't okay or when we feel like we're not doing enough. And there really doesn't need to be any shame spiral. So, what I mean by that is we keep feeding into that lie that we're inherently wrong, or we there must be something so desperately wrong with us, and so we feed that and beat ourselves up when there can be so much more that happens through releasing that. So I feel like what happens with the shame spiral is when we can't release something to the Lord, we rehearse that moment, that thing, that something that we struggled with, and we play it on repeat until it just takes over.
Yeah, that's so good. I love the way you described that. And I have found in my own life, and I hope this is helpful to you moms that are listening. When I start to shame spiral, I know I need to have a self management meeting because I help manage other people, but I need to manage myself. And we have control over where our thoughts are going to go. So definitely take the medicine if you're dealing with depression. But then when you start to shame spiral, tell yourself to stop and choose to focus on something different. For me, that can be something as simple as going through the alphabet and praising God for who he is, or thinking about, some other positive thing that happened throughout the day that I can give thanks for. It's just kind of catching those thoughts and not allowing yourself to completely tank, right?
Right. Well, I mean, scriptures talk about taking our thoughts captive. And I think in those moments where we are rehearsing the shameful moments or things where we struggled, we can absolutely take that thought captive and say, you know what? Like, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to play this moment on repeat over and over and over. I'm going to shift my mind, shift my focus. I'm going to, think on the things above. And, and this is not going to be like a stopping point. This is going to be a moment of release where I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that is so important. It's like it says in Philippians 4, whatever's true, whatever's, holy, and it goes on and on through that list. We have to think on those things. So we do have to take our thoughts and make them obey us, kind of. And kind of think about the things that are going to help us. So, what would you say to the woman out there who says, well, I'm in this deep depression and my husband doesn't want me to go for counseling?
Ooh, that is a hard one. It's hard when we feel like our what we need to be okay is minimized. A lot of times that might be a really big pattern and red flag and root of depression is not getting that support that you needed at home. It's absolutely okay to say, you know what, I know that you might not understand this or agree with this, but I've got to make this appointment because I want our marriage to work. I want our relationship to work. And if I'm not me, if I'm bringing the lesser version of me, I'm going to just get worse. Because anybody who loves us wants us to be okay. They want us to get better.
Yeah. And I think, husbands can get afraid of counseling sometimes. But I think being strong enough to advocate for yourself in that realm and saying, in order to be the best version of who I feel God wants me to be, I need to go. And I'm okay that you're disagreeing with this, but I'm still going to go, and just making that appointment.
Right. Well, I mean, that's advocating for ourselves, right? So I'm going to schedule this appointment and just know, like, go in it with an open mind to go, the fruit of this is going to be worth it. So just keep taking care of yourself because the enemy wants you to be struggle and to be stuck in shame, and he wants you to be depressed. You are right when you're not. And so Keep fighting and struggling forward is what I call it with depression or anxiety. You truly are struggling forward, but each step you take makes you stronger.
Yeah, and counseling, I mean, I've gone for counseling myself, and I wouldn't trade those years for anything in the world because they helped me become a more healthy version of myself. And it's so interesting because again, the church has at times said, oh, don't go for counseling, which is fascinating to me since Proverbs says that there's wisdom in the abundance of counselors. So, I mean, I think counseling is just sitting with a trained person who can help you process your thinking and help you unpack your story so that you can find biblical healing, and that is God's will for you. So as we close, because we're almost out of time here, Jennifer, I want you to talk to the mom out there who says, man, I am just depressed and I don't know what to do. What's the next step she should take?
You need to tell one person that's close to you. Even if it's, can you help me find someone to reach out to? Can you help me find a counselor? We need to voice that because when we voice it and say, I'm depressed and I'm struggling, we have to acknowledge it and do something about it. So know that you're not alone. You're not broken. You're in the perfect place to begin again. So just take care of yourself and know you are worth that brave step of reaching out and asking for help.
Yeah, I love that. So, friends, listen, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety or, any of the other type issues like that, don't go to shame. Call a friend and tell your friend, call your doctor and start there. But definitely take this step to advocate for yourself and to get some help. Hey, again, the name of the book is What If You're Doing Better Than You Think? And I am assuming, Jennifer, that women can get this book anywhere where Christian books are sold. Amazon, bookstores, christianbook.com. And I would really encourage you to get it and give it a read because um, I'm tired of people feeling ashamed when they're feeling depressed or anxious because God is for you. He is not against you. He has not left you alone. And He has given us tools that we can use to get to a better place. So, hey, Jennifer, thanks for joining us today. We so appreciate you, so appreciate your book. And friends, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to encourage you to join us again next week, where we'll have another conversation that hopefully is going to help you connect more deeply with God, more empathetically with your friends and fellow moms, and more intentionally with your child. So thanks for joining us today.